If you're struggling with morning sickness, you're not alone. Up to 70% of pregnant women experience nausea and vomiting in the first trimester. But did you know that there is a surprising reason why some women suffer way more than others? And it's not just about what you ate this morning. So hormones like HCG, progesterone, and estrogen all play a role in triggering nausea. I'm going to give you 7 of the most effective, proven ways to reduce morning sickness, plus a free resource that I create to help you survive your first trimester. But before we get into it, my name is Diana. I am a physician assistant. I specialize in women's health and gynecology. And on this channel, we talk about pregnancy, women's health, and being a mama. So make sure to subscribe, and now let's get into it. Starting off with tip number 1, which is stabilize your blood sugar. This is one of the easiest changes that makes a real difference, which is keeping your blood sugar stable. Nausea often peaks first thing in the morning because you most likely haven't eaten all night, your stomach is empty, and your blood sugar has crashed. Your body is super sensitive right now, and that empty stomach makes you feel nauseated. So here is how you can help. Keep dry snacks next to your bed, and then right when you wake up, before you sit up, before you check your phone, eat something. So either crackers, granola bar, dry cereal. You're not eating a meal here, you're just keeping your stomach from being empty. And then throughout the day, try to eat small snacks every 2 to 3 hours, nothing big, just enough to keep up your blood sugar and keep your stomach from being empty. Because when your stomach stays calm, your brain and your body are calmer too. So this one tweak, eating strategically, can dramatically reduce those waves of nausea. By the way, morning sickness was most likely named for the nausea that starts first thing in the morning, but it certainly doesn't mean that it only lasts in the morning. So comment yes if you think that the name morning sickness is misleading and they really should name it all day sickness or something like that. Now, if you're in the thick of it, barely eating, you're exhausted, you're unsure of what's normal, I've got something to help. I've created a free first trimester survival guide that walks you through not just morning sickness, but also fatigue, bloating, weird cravings, food aversions, emotional changes, and so much more. It's very short, it's easy to read, and it's packed with tips. I wish somebody had handed me this at the start of my first pregnancy. You can grab this free guide after you watch this video, but for now, let's go on to the next tip. Because even if you're eating perfectly, nausea can still strike hard, especially if you are around this, or another example might be this. So tip number 2 is to identify and avoid triggers. For many women, nausea isn't random. It's triggered by specific smells, motions, or textures. It could be the smell of eggs, your partner's deodorant, or even brushing your teeth. So what I want you to do is try to identify your triggers so that you can avoid them. So start a nausea diary just for a couple of days or even a week and track what you were exposed to before you felt sick. You might be surprised at what you discover. And once you find the patterns of what your triggers are, do what you can to avoid them. So you might need to switch to unscented products or avoid certain restaurants. You might have to ask your partner to change colognes. I banned cooking with butter in my home for 9 months during my first pregnancy, and that really helped me because cooking butter was one of my triggers. So this step puts you back in control. Even reducing just 1 or 2 of your triggers can give you more good hours during your day. Now, of course, knowing what to avoid is really helpful, but it's also important to know what to gravitate towards. So for tip number 3, you're going to want to get more sleep and rest because your body is doing something that I consider miraculous. You are creating an entire human being. That takes an insane amount of energy. When you're exhausted, your body is more sensitive to everything, including nausea. So give yourself permission to slow down, nap if you need to, and to say no to things that can wait. Sleep and rest are not indulgences right now. They're absolutely necessary. You're not lazy, and in fact, it's quite the opposite. Think of it this way. You're working around the clock to make a little person. So prioritizing rest is like refueling your system. When you're rested, then you can handle more things, including nausea. But rest alone isn't always enough. So let's talk about a natural remedy that's actually backed by science. So tip number 4 is to use ginger. Ginger has been used for centuries to treat nausea, and it turns out modern science agrees. There are tons of different ways that you can take ginger. You can take it as a ginger tea, as capsules, chews, or fresh in smoothies. Everyone's different, so experiment with what form works best for you and then what you actually enjoy the most. This isn't just folklore. Ginger is one of the few natural remedies with actual data behind it. It may not erase nausea altogether, but it definitely takes the edge off. And speaking of natural, there's another drug-free method that works for a surprising number of women. So tip number 5 is to try acupressure on your wrist. There's a pressure point on the inside of your wrist called P6 that's been studied for nausea. And not just for pregnancy, it's also used for surgery and also during chemo. The P6 acupressure, also known as pericardium 6, is located on the inner wrist. To find it, place the first 3 fingers of your other hand across your wrist below the crease and then place your thumb directly below your index finger. The P6 point is located in the space between the 2 tendons. So you can stimulate it by pressing gently for a few minutes, or you could also wear acupressure wristbands. They're non-invasive, they're not expensive, and they're easy to try. So it's really simple, it's safe, and like I said, it's inexpensive. So it's not gonna hurt anything, and it might help. It's probably not gonna cure your nausea entirely, but for a lot of women, it does provide a lot of relief, especially when you pair it with other things. Now, snacks, sleep, and natural remedies aren't cutting it. Don't worry, because this next tip is actually a first-line medical option. Now, if you are to this point and nothing that I've already mentioned has helped, this is probably the situation that you should consult your OB to find out what their recommendations are for you. For women who have had significant nausea and vomiting in a previous pregnancy, studies do show that for the next pregnancy, if they initiate medication before they have symptoms, that the nausea and vomiting can be better controlled. Something to keep in mind if this is not your first pregnancy and you know that you have already struggled with morning sickness before. So for tip number 6, over-the-counter vitamin B6, also called pyridoxine, taken with or without doxylamine. This combination is often the first treatment OBs recommend before moving on to prescriptions. Together, they mimic the ingredients in a prescription medication called diclegis. Now, if you've spoken to your OB and they have given you the go-ahead to take this combination, just remember that doxylamine's brand name is Unisom, but this can be confusing because there are 2 different Unisoms at the pharmacy. So make sure to look at the main active ingredient. It should be doxylamine. If the main ingredient is diphenhydramine, that's just Benadryl. That's not what you want. You want the one that is doxylamine. So taking this combination of doxylamine with vitamin B6 is considered safe, and it's easily accessible, and it works really well. For a lot of women, it's the difference between surviving the day and actually being able to function throughout the day. Now, I can't talk about morning sickness without addressing the circumstance where you've tried everything and you are still throwing up constantly, because that could mean it's something more serious. So tip number 7 is recognize when it's more than morning sickness. So if you're vomiting multiple times a day, you're losing weight, you can't even keep fluids down, you may be dealing with something called hyperemesis gravidarum. This is a medical condition that affects about 1 to 2% of pregnant women. You may need prescription medications like ondansetron, you might need IV fluids, or more hands-on support, and you absolutely deserve that care. This is not about being strong enough, it's about being safe, and advocating for yourself isn't weakness, it is wisdom. So if something feels wrong, make sure to talk to your OB about it, let them know your concerns, because you need to take care of not only yourself, but also your growing baby, and dehydration from hyperemesis gravidarum is something you need to take seriously. All right, now we talked about the 7 proven strategies today, from blood sugar control to avoiding triggers, to using ginger, acupressure, safe medications, and how to recognize hyperemesis gravidarum. You don't have to try everything at once. Start with 1 or 2 tips and give yourself grace as you figure out what works for you. And don't forget to grab your free copy of my first trimester survival guide. It is linked in the video description, and it's full of extra tips, meal ideas, and reminders that you are doing a phenomenal job, even when it doesn't feel like it. By the way, if you want to see detailed videos on what goes on with each week of pregnancy, be sure to check out my pregnancy series, where I walk you through pregnancy week by week. In each video, I talk about baby development, symptoms that you might be having, what to expect at your OB appointments, basically everything that you need to know about pregnancy that week, we talk about in that video. So I'm going to link to that right here. Click on that, find the week that you are right now, maybe watch a few beforehand just to get caught up. So click on that, and I will see you over there.